Welcome to Homeo Vision and a good day to all of you watching this video. I'm Dr. Gauthami and let us continue with our Organon of Medicine videos. In this video, we will discuss about aphorism number 11 and the footnote on dynamic influence. So this is a significantly big aphorism. So that is one reason why I will not be reading the aphorism line to line. And the footnote is much bigger and much lengthier than the aphorism. Okay, and the footnote to this aphorism is about dynamic influence or dynamic power, wherein Hahnemann tries to explain what exactly dynamic means. Okay, and how are we to understand this concept of dynamic influence? So what I've done here is I have made a chart, as in I've made notes for this aphorism, through which I will be explaining this concept. After watching this video, I would want all of you to go back to the sixth edition of Organon and read the aphorism. And once you read the aphorism, you will find that every line in that aphorism has been explained through this notes that I have made. All right. So let us start the aphorism. So Hahnemann basically in this aphorism, he talks about vital force in disease. So we already know that the ninth aphorism, we talked about what vital force is. That is basically definition of vital force and how does it act in health, right? So this is what we learned in ninth aphorism. Then we had 10th aphorism. 10th aphorism was all about what happens to an organism when there is no vital force. So we learned that if there is no vital force, there is no sensations, there is no functions, there is no self-preservation. A body cannot take care of itself. It cannot keep its own organism alive. So therefore, it will result in death. Okay, so this is what we learned in the previous two aphorisms. Now this 11th aphorism is all about what happens to this vital force in disease and what happens to the organism um, in disease. All right. Okay, so let us start the explanation. So when a person falls ill, what happens and how does this person fall ill? Okay, so when you say, I'm extremely sorry. So when you say that a person is sick or falls ill, what happens is that the spiritual vital force is deranged. So there is derangement of the vital force that is occurring. Okay. So when and deranged by what? Correct. So we are saying that in disease, what happens? That is when a person falls ill, the spiritual vital force gets deranged. But deranged by what? What is deranging this vital force? So this vital force is being deranged by a disease causing agent. And this disease causing agent has a dynamic influence on this vital force. So therefore, the vital force is deranged by the dynamic influence of a disease causing agent. Okay. Now this dynamic, so here there is actually an asterisk over this word dynamic in the aphorism. Okay. And that relates to materia peccans down in the footnote. Okay. Actually, in the footnote to aphorism 11, Hahnemann has put a star over the word dynamic and has referred it to materia peccans. But some say that this is actually a misplaced footnote. Okay, it should have actually been in the 13th aphorism, where there he talks about the material causes of the disease. But but in this aphorism, nowhere does he mention about the material causes. He is simply talking about dynamic influence. Okay, and this disease causing agent is termed as morbific. Yes, all right. Sorry. So this disease causing agent has been termed as a morbific agent inimical to life. Okay, morbific agent inimical to life. Inimical is what? Something that is like an enemy, correct? So morbific agent inimical to life. Sorry, inimical to life. All right. So we know that whenever there is disease or whenever a person falls ill, the vital force is deranged and it is deranged by the dynamic influence of a morbific agent inimical to life. Now, what happens once this vital force is deranged? So this dynamically deranged vital force, now this will start producing what? signs and symptoms. Correct? S and S, that is signs and symptoms, which is nothing but TOS, that is the totality of the symptoms. So this dynamically deranged vital force will start producing abnormal, or the word used in the aphorism is disagreeable. Okay, so abnormal sensation functions or disagreeable sensations and functions, which is now going to be termed as disease. So this is the definition of disease. Okay, so when a person falls ill, the vital force is deranged, and this vital force is deranged by the dynamic influence of a morbific agent inimical to life, and this dynamically deranged vital force will start producing disagreeable sensations and functions. Next, in the next part of the aphorism, he says that we all know that vital force is something that is invisible. It is invisible, it is immaterial. Okay, it cannot be directly perceived by the senses, as in we cannot touch, we cannot smell, or we cannot hear, or we cannot listen to the vital force. Correct? But this is cognizable. The cognizable is nothing but recognizable. Okay, recognizable. But this vital force is recognizable through its manifestations. Okay, as in especially when the vital force is deranged and it starts producing the morbid symptoms, that is nothing but the signs and symptoms, we can see that we get a proof of its existence. Correct? So when the vital force is deranged by some influence, by some disease causing agents, and when it starts producing all these signs and symptoms, we will get proof of its existence. That is, we will start noticing that something is existing. Okay, because something is disturbed, these signs and symptoms are being produced. So although we cannot see the vital force directly, or we cannot see the vital force acting on the organism, but still we know that some force is existing, and whenever this force is disturbed, some disease is being produced. All right, so this much. This is the 11th aphorism proper. Now, coming to the footnote of this aphorism. So the footnote of this aphorism talks about dynamic influence or dynamic power. All right. So we all know that dynamic is something that is always in action. See, the word meaning of dynamic is, we have already discussed this in the ninth aphorism also, something that is always in action. Okay, is called as dynamic. And when we refer to vital force in a dynamic sense, we know that this is beyond the human senses. As I already told you, it is imperceptible. It is something that we cannot perceive. We can see that something is happening, but this cannot be explained through what can I say, materialistic processes. Okay, we can see that something is happening, we can see what is happening, but it cannot be explained as to how it is happening. Okay, so here he gives a definition of what dynamic influence is. He says it is almost equivalent to, we have two substances, okay, each influencing the other, that is, one is acting on the each other. Yeah, two substances act on each other, but there is no material connection between them. Okay, do you understand this? There are two substances which are acting on each other. We know that one substance has an influence on the other, and this other substance has an influence upon the first substance. But there is no connection, there is no material connection between them. Okay, this connection is not there. Okay, that is what is being called as dynamic influence or dynamic power by Hahnemann. And this is exactly how vital force also functions. Okay, as in it is acting, but we cannot see how it is acting. Okay, there is no material connection is missing, no material connection. Further, in this aphorism, in this footnote, he starts giving examples. So these are very, I've just, cut it down to 5 points, correct? Now, one example is about the sun and the moon. So we know that the moon rotates, just a minute. I think I've quoted this wrong. Let me verify once. It is not the sun and the moon, it is earth and the moon. Okay, so we know that the moon is a satellite, correct? It is a satellite, what do you say? A satellite being, right? So the moon is rotating around the earth. Okay, we know it is rotating around the earth in a specific manner. It carries a specific path, correct? But we don't know, but so we know that the earth carries the satellite moon, and the moon takes, in a period of 28 days, correct? That is a lunar month. But here we see that there is no material connection between the moon and the earth, but still they're acting together in a systemic manner. And that is because of the gravitational force. So we know that the moon is going in a certain path, in a certain fixed path around the earth in a regular period of time, and this happens infinitely, correct? But we do not see any string or something attached between the earth and the moon, correct? So there is no material connection, but we know that there is a force existing which is keeping the moon in a certain path around the sun. So this becomes dynamic again. Okay, this is the dynamic influence, in fact. Okay, so gravitational force has a dynamic influence between the earth and the moon. So similarly, we have the moon and the tides. So we know the effect of full moon and no moon on the tides, correct? So the high tides, the low tides. So we know that moon has an effect on the tides. But can we see something that is connecting the moon and the tides together? No. Again, this is also because of the gravitational force, something that we cannot see. So here also we see that there is a dynamic influence, but we know that there is no material connection between them. We cannot see or we cannot touch something that is connecting the moon and the tides, or we cannot see something that is touching, that is connecting the earth and the moon. Similarly, we have, now we come to magnetic. So these two are regarding gravitational forces, correct? GF. Now we have the magnetic field. Okay, so we know that magnet, it attracts iron and steel pieces. But can it attract anything, something else like wood? No. Can it attract plastic? No. But we know that magnet has a certain property, and this certain property makes it attract iron and steel pieces. Correct? But how does it attract? We know that the attraction is happening. We can see the iron piece moving forward towards the magnet, but can we see any string or some stick or a hook pulling the iron piece towards the magnet? No. So there is no material connection between them. Here also there is a dynamic force acting between these two objects, and that is the magnetic field. Now, he gives some humanly or examples of living organisms, instances in living organisms, okay, where we can find the dynamic influence. And what is that? So NNV is nothing but nausea and vomiting. So some people, they get nausea and vomiting when they're exposed to certain substances, okay, which are almost harmless to others. Say I get nausea and vomiting on being exposed to asafoetida. But my parents and my other family members, they like asafoetida. They do not get nausea and vomiting. Okay, so again, here we can see that there is an individualization happening, which is again very specific and individual to our homeopathic system of medicine. So in such instances, what is happening? See, I have not consumed this asafoetida, but just by looking at it, or sometimes just at the thought of certain food items, people tend to get nausea and vomiting, correct? So again, this is also a purely an example of dynamic action or dynamic force. So we know that there is no material exchange of substances not occurring here, but still there is nausea and vomiting occurring. So this is again one example of the dynamic influence or dynamic action that exists. Next, another example he gives is when a healthy person raises his hand, there is no lever or string or hook attached to it. So we just do it casually and normally and unknowingly. Okay, so we do not need something or somebody to pull our hand up. Correct? So this person can raise his hand whenever he wishes to do so. Correct? Now, what is this? What is this? This is the will. Okay, his will makes the, so it is a will. So again, this will is also being considered as something that is dynamic and something that has a dynamic influence or dynamic power on the material organism. Okay. So what happens? His will is something that makes the muscles, bones, and nerves, okay, to act and lift the hand. Again, what is this will? This will is nothing but the dynamic action, or it is the dynamic influence, or it is the dynamic power. Okay. So now I hope after going through all these examples, now I think this statement makes much more sense to all of you. Correct? So two substances acting on each other, but what happens? There is no material connection between them. You cannot see, touch, or hear uh, something materialistic between these two things. Okay, but we know something is happening, but we are not able to explain or something imperceptible is happening. We are not able to explain how it is happening. Okay, so this is a brief gist and explanation on aphorism number 11. If there are any doubts, please do put them up in the comment section below. Revise, and if you like this video, share them with your friends, and I hope it has been beneficial to all of you. Thank you very much.